So it has been a hot minute since I updated everybody on the electric skateboard project. Now in that time, I managed to actually finish my degree, so hopefully I'll be able to upload a lot more in the future. And if you came to my channel for the RC boat project, don't worry, there's going to be an update on that soon, long time in the making. But I thought that we would finally finish off this project and I would release the files for everyone who wants to make their own. So in the last part, I rode around a little bit, we installed a headlight, and I discovered that the motors had a fatal flaw in their design. So if you're interested in that, go take a look. It's a pretty good video and I think a lot of you would enjoy it. This story continues on where that one left off, with first of all me fixing the motor issues. So once I got the tires off of the rim, I noticed the biggest issue was that the tires would soften at high temperatures. Then at high RPM, they would stretch out so that they were actually larger than the motor that was underneath them. And the actual screws that would engage with the tires would actually dig in and ruin them. So my idea to fix this was to introduce a two plastic system. So there'd be an inner harder plastic such as PLA, ABS, or PTG, and an outer softer plastic such as TPU, which would act as a tire. My thought was that the inner spoke would actually distribute the load a bit more on the softer TPU tire, and the harder plastic would interface with the screws a little bit better, and hopefully it wouldn't dig in and ruin it. So it was time to print this out and give it a try. So this one just had a PLA spoke, which was the only material I had at the time. And the tires were printed in this bright orange TPU. Once I threw it all together, I thought it looked pretty good. Oh, and I added a very basic tire pattern to this first one. Now I actually forgot to record this first ride. I just went around my neighborhood, but I can show you what the aftermath was. So yeah, these initial tires were not printed at 100% infill, and clearly that did not work so well. Once I rode around on them for a little bit and they started taking some impact, they pretty much just fell apart. And once that happened, they just started spinning in the hub and vibrating even worse than the stock wheels. However, the actual PLA spokes survived just fine, so I was able to reuse those and print a new tire out at 100% infill, and then this time I took it for a test on a farther ride to my university, which is a pretty punishing 5-kilometer hill climb.
No vibrations yet, and I'm up the big hill. So it seems like, around the same part that the last one started to loosen, these did too. So once the motors get nice and hot. Pretty sure this is just a bad design. That's okay. I've now sort of figured out that no matter what I do, I think these are just gonna fail on this road. This is like the motor killer.
Now I kind of wanted my board to be bulletproof, so I ended up actually ordering a different design of motor from a company called Puadia. I can't. These Chinese companies, man. And these ones actually promise to have a metal sleeve insert instead of just interfacing directly with the tires via some screws. And I was hoping that this would be a more bulletproof design for the skateboard.
In terms of scale, these are my old motors, and these are the new ones from this Puadia company. Here's the front. And there's my old front wheels.
So while I was in the spirit of upgrading the board, I decided that I was going to rewire the whole thing to include that auto headlight I was talking about last episode. It's totally overkill, but I thought it would be kind of fun, so I wrote a small program to do it and wired it all up. So it actually has two inverters. One drops the 40 volts to 12, and then one drops 12 to 5 for the low power circuit. Then the photoresistor is inputted to the Arduino, which then turns on and off a simple relay. So it's a fairly simple circuit, but it seems to work quite well. So at this time, I also changed from using wood screws to these M5 threaded inserts so that I could change parts out more easily without stripping the wood. And I also bought the corresponding ESC from the same company as the motors because it has a little screen on the controller, and I'm a sucker for that. But I also wanted to make it so that if any of you in the audience wanted to make your own, you'd just be able to buy the same parts that I did instead of buying some random Amazon crap. And honestly, from my experience, these motors have been absolutely bulletproof and quite a bit more powerful than those crappy Amazon ones I bought. So after a little bit more tweaking, it was looking pretty good, and I was ready to go give it a top speed test with the new motors and speed controller combo.
Alright, gonna go for a bit of a top speed, so I don't die. That's half throttle. Holy fuck. Yeah, never mind, I think that's good enough for me. On 30 is already enough, and there's a lot of rocks on the road.
But now I had a new dilemma. I had two motors that worked reasonably well and an extra speed controller. So obviously, I had to make another one. And this one was going to be for my girlfriend. So I got her this awesome skateboard deck for Christmas, and I got to work. So I'll spare you all the gory details and just hit the highlights. So I ended up printing her new spokes for her wheels out of ABS, hence this beautiful enclosure. I was originally going to print this out of PETG, but I think my PETG was a little bit wet. I also redesigned the tire so that it looked just a little bit better and had an actual somewhat useful pattern. Once these were done, I installed them back onto the motors, and I had a functioning set of wheels for the board. So pretty much all the rest of it was just drilling and wiring and all of that other tedious stuff. So we also went with these cheaper Amazon batteries for this board just to save a little bit of money. But 4 months later, it's been absolutely bulletproof. We're just starting to see the beginning of the wear on the rear wheels, but it should still have a few months left in it. Oh, and I would definitely recommend just buying these knockoff batteries. So far, they have less capacity, but they're completely fine, and they cost about a third as much. And yeah, then I just needed to do a last pass on all the parts, just refining the final stuff. One of the things I had to do was fix this power inverter that had both the lugs break off because they were super low quality. So I just made a tray for that. And I also switched both of the risers to use a 2 TPU riser system. So there's a TPU riser on top and bottom. Now this isolates the vibrations by quite a bit. And I had to do that because I actually crashed the board into a step and broke off the headlight. So while I also redesigned those TPU risers, I beefed up the headlight mount by quite a lot. And while I was redoing everything, I also switched out the battery mounts to go from using glue to hold in the terminals to actually using 2 set screws pinched in there. This is a much better solution. And then I redid some of the electronics boxes and the actual wiring itself to sort of make a final version. So this should be a bit more skookum than that original one. And that pretty much brings us to our final board here. So besides the little bit of electrical tape, because I forgot to put the cap on the XT60 connector, I'm really happy with the way that this turned out. I think it looks really clean, and I think it's going to be pretty reliable for years to come. And now for one more top speed test.
Okay, we're gonna go for a top speed run here. Now that I'm more comfortable on the board. I don't think you realize how fast 30 kilometers an hour feels. Holy crap. So I'm thinking that's as fast as I'm comfortable going. It feels incredible. Hit in the face with bugs. It feels very fast. That's only like half throttle, by the way, when I'm going that fast. So I think we're good there.
So I think this was my favorite project I've ever actually done. It was super fun, super rewarding, and I get something really cool at the end of it. I hope at least some of you enjoyed watching it. It was really quite a long process. Took me almost a year to finish it, but I'm pretty happy with the final product. Also, I'm pretty comfortable now with releasing the final parts for this project, so if you want to build one of your own, just let me know in the comments, and I'll make sure to upload it to Thingiverse and give you all a link. But for now, I have to go do all these same changes to the other board. So thank you all very much for watching, and I hope to see you very soon.